Welcome to the Brown County Hour.
Coming to you from the legendary hills of Brown, where the plum purple haze,
the one nature herself drapes over the hills and hollers,
inspires local characters, artists, and nature lovers.
It's as though the hills themselves conspire to create a beauty and culture in the heart of Indiana.
Sit for a spell and hear the music.
Tall tales,
true stories,
and current goings-on.
Brought to you by folks who still know how to sit by a fire in winter
and swim buck naked in summer.
Welcome to episode 62 of the Brown County Hour. This is Cari Ray.
And Dave Seastrom, along with the rest of the crew. This month, our musical guest is Jason Blankenship. We'll listen to his interview and some of his music that he and David Sharp recorded in our studio.
In this show, we'll have another nature segment from Jim Eagleman. Roger Banister will share his This Old Guitar. And Dave Seastrom has an essay about spring in Brown County.
We also have an interview with 86-year-old backpacker Tom Connor. Rick Fettig shares a story about a wedding at Straw Lake in Brown County State Park, and Cari Ray shares another for a song.
In our first segment, we'll listen to the interview with Jason Blankenship. Jim Eagleman shares some information about wild bird eggs, and we'll close with Jason's song, Brown County Moon.
It is my pleasure to introduce Jason Blankenship and his sidekick, Dave Sharp, who is along with him. They just finished an incredible performance of original music here in our studio. But our focus is Jason himself, songwriter, performer, and actually a really nice fellow that we've had the opportunity to meet before. You've outlined a few things that you wanted to talk about, and apparently you've spent quite a lot of time in Chicago.
Yeah. First of all, let me say what an honor it is to be on the Brown County Radio Hour. This is kind of turned into an institution here in Brown County. I certainly listen to it every month, and so this is a pretty cool thing for me to be on here. So I really appreciate y'all taking the time to do this. And yeah, I did my music career, if you want to call it that, or my life in music. Obviously I grew up with a lot of music around my house, and then I was kind of bitten by the blues bug in the mid-'80s. I remember I was watching TV, and I saw an ad for Stevie Ray Vaughan playing at the Ohio State Fair. So I was like, I'm going to go up check that out. That's pretty cool. And I went up, and it just, it kind of knocked me out. So from that point, I had the blues bug and started doing what a lot of young musicians did back then, which is, I was familiar with B.B. King and all those traditional well-known blues guys. Kind of started digging back in some of the old blues stuff, got into Chicago blues pretty heavy. Then I graduated college. I graduated from the Ohio State University, as they call it. But I got out of school and was planning to be a teacher. I was actually starting to substitute teach and coach, and just something struck me that maybe that was a little too easy for me, and I had been playing music all through college, doing open mics and open jams and, parties and other things like that. But anyhow, kind of out of the whim one day, I decided that I was going to change direction in my life. So I think it was 5 or 6 resumes. I decided I was going to send a resume to all the different independent record labels. A week or so later, I got a call from a gentleman named Mark Lipkin at Alligator Records, which is a pretty well-known independent blues label up in Chicago. And he said, hey, we need a media relations intern. There's no pay. When can you start? So a week later, I was in Chicago, had a couple friends there. So I was on the couch circuit for 4 to 6 months, something like that, just doing my thing. And interestingly enough, my first day at Alligator, I met my future wife. She was there interning in radio promotions. I was in media promotions. And
so that's how you ended up getting compensated for the whole position.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
But that's when she started dragging me along. She had been in Chicago for about a year. She got me a job at Buddy Guy's Legends, Chicago. So I spent several months interning for free during the day, and then being a busboy at night. Be from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just busting it out, surrounded by nothing but pretty cool blues music. I saw every national and international blues musician you would want to see, and then some come through. So it was a pretty foundational experience for me.
And somehow you ended up in Brown County.
Yeah. So I think it was 93. I went to Chicago, and I was there for almost 6 years, I think. My wife's originally from Martinsville. So
Okay.
We had our first child up in Chicago and battled that for about a year and a half and just got worn down, so we decided we were going to move back around family. And I think it was around 2009, my wife and I started an organization called the Network for Original Americana Music. When we decided we wanted to get back into things, we were listening to a lot of roots rock and Steve Earle, just that kind of stuff. We decided we'd move more on the acoustic, folk, Americana side. We started what we called NOAM, N-O-A-M, to try and support local and regional live music, basically people who did their own material. So we would try to put together what we called NOAM showcases and go out. And we started here in Brown County. We were at the old Muddy Boots. And that was a really positive experience, and that with my wife kind of leading the charge, that got us back into the music life a little bit and really allowed us to make some wonderful contacts and really meet musicians. And we met so many great folks. One thing that we got out of that kind of drew us to Brown County when we were ready to kind of relocate was that we already knew people here. We've been around a lot of music, and really Nashville and Brown County is kind of a unique area. It's already got the artist feel, and the musicians here are very supportive. There's not a lot of competition. Everybody tries to do the best they do, but they're not tearing people down. It's really a positive, inspiring, sometimes daunting, when you see other musicians out doing what they do and realize how really good some of the musicians around here are. It's inspiring, but it's also like, if I go out, I better kind of step my game up.
Well, it's been interesting to watch the evolution of the music scene in Brown County. There was some, and there's always been like the legendary stuff up there at Bean Blossom.
Right.
But what's happened now is a whole new generation of musicians coming in, and it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Brown County obviously is known for bluegrass and string music, and there's a lot of that around here, and there's some great musicians doing that stuff. I think maybe Reverend Peyton is, I don't know about age-wise, but in terms of being out there having a music career, he's kind of seen as, maybe the godfather of the Brown County music scene. But there's so many others. The White Lightning Boys are incredible. Cari Ray, who we met her before we moved to Brown County, Cari and Chuck and the Loners, and, I love watching them. Indiana Boys, Hammer and the Hatchet. There's just, you can go out on any given night and see just, incredible music around here. And what I do is a little bit different. Purposely, in some sense, I would describe what I do and what we do as a band as really more kind of roots rock, the little folk thrown in there. And that's a little bit different. There's not a lot of people in Brown County doing that.
So now we're talking about the Blankenship band.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, really when I play out, really have two things going on. I'll do solo or duo stuff. Dave and I do a lot of duo gigs. And then we also do a full band gigs when the money's right and can make the schedule work. It's called the Blankenship Band. That was something I started because one of the other aspects of the gnome work that Jennifer and I did was that we really wanted to include our kids. Our kids are pretty musical. Our oldest two, I have a daughter that's 20 and a son that's 17, and they play music and guitar a little bit. So we were trying to find a way to incorporate music into the family and bring it together. Well, things don't always work out the way you think, and when your kids are teenagers, the music you play, they're not big fans of, right? So they're like, we're not getting involved in that.
Oh, right.
And it happens. It's, it's not negative. It's just the way life is. And then when the gnome stuff ended and I continued to try and build the band end of things, my thought was calling it the Blankenship Band kind of left it open-ended. I can be the only Blankenship out playing, and I could have Dave and John Missick and Pat Cawley playing with me. And
so, Dave, you're an honorary Blankenship from time.
Honorary Blankenship, that's right. I'm proud of it.
But otherwise, you're known as David Sharp.
Yes. That's my day job.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you're heading to the studio here in June, is that correct?
We are, yeah. That's been the people laugh at me around here because I've been trying to make that happen for a couple years now. But yeah, we've actually
that's the way it goes.
Yeah, the first well, when you have kids, things come up. But it's the first weekend of June. We're going to go into the studio. My friend Keith Hanlon, he runs a really cool vintage studio over in Columbus, Ohio, called Music Hall. We're going to go in there. We've booked out a full day, and we've got 10 songs that we know pretty darn well. We're going to go in and try and knock them out and try and make a good record.
Are these your original songs?
Yeah, it's going to be all original material. And I'm really kind of excited for me and for us because the next step for the Blankenship band especially is to try and get that CD done and then get out there and move up in terms of the level of gigs we play.
So you have some upcoming gigs.
The one I'm most excited about is May 19th. I think it's Friday, May 19th, playing at the Players Pub, kind of a Brown County co-bill with the Rainwater Band.
So if we're interested in following you guys and want to pay attention to where you be playing, do you have a website, a Facebook page?
Well, we have a Facebook page, obviously, the Blankenship Band. So if you just look up the Blankenship Band on Facebook, that'll take you to our site there. And then there's also a link on that to our website. On our website, just type in Blankenship and Wix, W-I-X, will come up right at the top. Yeah, but we got all our dates on there, lots of pictures, and there is some music on there. It's mostly solo acoustic stuff that I recorded.
Jason, David, thank you so much for coming in. This has really been marvelous, and we've totally enjoyed your performance.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
The incredible edible egg, a marketing slogan by the National Egg Institute a few years ago, still sticks in my brain when I prepare eggs for breakfast. Scrambled, sunny side, omelets, over easy, soft-boiled, poached, fried, it doesn't matter. I love eggs. Add some fried potatoes, a leftover from the night before, toast, coffee, and after consuming this feast, I can tackle the world. But it's not because it's close to Easter and a more celebration of the egg that I remark about them now. Brightly colored and decorated, the egg at Easter, complete with a basket of artificial grass and chocolate bunnies, it's always been a symbol of life's promise. As a birder who particularly watches for the nest of songbirds where the egg is attended, I marvel at the dedication and skill required to construct the nest, let alone protect and finally incubate and rear to maturity the lowly egg. Wonder if we could build a nest as good as a bird. Years ago, I brought into the Nashville classroom all the necessary items for the fourth grader to make their own bird nest. I asked them at the beginning if they thought they could do a better job than the bird. Oh, absolutely, they yelled. An hour later, with twigs and grass all over the floor, one by one they showed us their poor excuse for a nest. And they used both hands, glue, string, and any other item they needed. The bird used its beak. Nests are the most vulnerable and obvious sight a bird could choose to bring another of its kind into the world. To the wide, searching eyes of predators, it's an easy find. The unprotected egg just laying there is a ready-made meal for raccoons, possums, crows, jays, snakes, and even other songbirds. Cowbird females purposely lay their eggs in the nests of other birds to be reared by more diligent parents. Yet despite an attempt to hide it, the nest once located is the best way for those of us who watch birds to observe activity, behavior, and the rearing of young. When you can observe a nest being made, another of nature's dramas is underway. Nest building for most songbirds is initiated after mating, the mutual act of building actually strengthening the bond between male and female. Nests of twigs, grass, moss, and plant down are built within holes or cavities of trees, on bare or in clumps of branches, on the ground, and basically anywhere the bird wants to build it. I say this since I've observed nests built in front door wreaths, in hanging plants, in work boots, and on windowsills. And sometimes so close to our daily coming and going, with constant disturbance, you wonder why that site was chosen. Incubation can take usually 10 to 14 days, or 2 to 3 weeks, somewhere in between is an average, a time when both parents take turns sitting on the eggs, or when the female does it alone. A brood patch on her belly with a few downy feathers allows close contact of the eggs with her warm skin. The female may leave the nest to feed, the male then takes his turn or diligently guards the nest site. This coming and going attracts attention for us and any resourceful predator. Perching birds called passerines generally have 3 to 6 eggs, while those birds that belong to the quail or grouse family, the galliformes or gallinaceous birds to the ornithologist, those with crops and gizzards, have large clutches of eggs, maybe as many as a dozen. Waterfowl also have large clutches, the thinking that nests on the ground or near water may be more vulnerable, and so more are laid. What's true of any large number of eggs that are hatched? Mortality will occur, and generally from a clutch of a dozen or so eggs in spring, approximately 80% will succumb by the first fall to predation, cold weather, accidents, hunting, etc. These limiting factors are true of the young of any wildlife population, and managers know to anticipate this large loss when working with habitats or the release of artificially reared young. Have you ever wondered why eggs are a different color? Some science is in order to help explain. A blue pigment called biliverdin seems common in the thrush family, the Turdidae. That also includes the robin, all the thrushes, and the eastern bluebird. The color, ornithologists have found, is transferred onto the eggs internally from a special pigment gland as it passes through the oviduct. It is an antioxidant and that protects the cells from damage. Deeper blue eggs are a sign of a healthy female and therefore should produce genetically stronger fledglings. Male robins judge the color of the eggs and will feed hatchlings of deeper blue eggs almost twice as much as hatchlings from paler eggs. It's advantageous for females to produce darker eggs in order to receive more parental care from the male. It has also been shown to protect the embryo from DNA-damaging UV and infrared light. A few drawbacks, however: the darker color causes the egg to heat up faster if it's exposed to sunlight. This could result in the egg developing too quickly, leading to developmental issues. The transfer of biliverdin also stresses the female because she is diverting it from her own body. Female robins have to strike a tricky balance of egg production, protection, parental involvement, and her own health in order to ensure the healthy young. Most of us merely appreciate the gorgeous color of robin eggs, never realizing the science behind the color. Jim Eagleman for Nature News, WFHB Radio, the Brown County Hour. Thanks for listening.
All right, we're going to start off with a couple of Brown County-inspired songs. This first song is a song I wrote called Brown County Moon. I've been in the county for a couple of years now, 2-3 years, and I've noticed there's a little bit of what I call a Luna society, or a bunch of folks who enjoy looking at the moon. And I found that on full moon, especially the supermoon, last year, things can get a little bit off the chain sometimes out here in Brown County. So this is kind of inspired this song called Brown County Moon.
My heart is heavy and the road is long. I take a long way around just to get back home. Ain't no telling where I'll be. Come on, pretty baby, don't wait up on me. I'll dance with you, you'll dance with me. Don't make it true, just you wait and see. Need that brown county moon. Need that brown county moon. They say two wrongs don't make a right. Me and the devil stayed out all night. Ain't no telling where we've been. Don't get a little sleep and do it all again. I'll dance with you, you'll dance with me. Don't make it true, just you wait and see. Need that brown county moon. Need that brown county moon. Has a way of playing tricks these days. Just look at what we missed with all that time we saved. Baby, turn around and then you'll see everything that happens is just meant to be. I'll dance with you, you'll dance with me. Don't make it true, just you wait and see. Need that brown county moon. Need that brown county moon. Need that brown county moon. Need that brown county moon.
Now we pause for station identification.
You are listening to the Brown County Hour on volunteer-powered community radio, WFHB, at 100.7 in Brown County, 91.3 and 98.1 in Bloomington, 106.3 at Ellettsville, and online at wfhb.org. Support for WFHB and the Brown County Hour is brought to you by Plum Creek Antiques, located at the intersection of 135 and 45 in downtown Bean Blossom, where visitors can buy, sell, or trade most anything. More information is available by calling 812-988-6268.
We begin segment 2 with our interview with 86-year-old backpacker Tom Connor. Cari Ray brings us a new For a Song, and we'll listen to another Jason Blankenship tune, Mahaliasville Road.
This evening we have the pleasure of interviewing Tom Connor, who is an absolutely remarkable character. We've just spent the last 45 minutes going through the story of his lifetime as part of our Elders Project. Welcome to the studio, Tom. Thanks again for coming in.
You're welcome.
We've covered that you were not born in Brown County, but you were 3 years old when you arrived, and you lived just outside of T.C. Steel there. Your dad had a little farm that you all grew up on.
Yes.
I'm going to just give a quick synopsis so we can get to some of the other stuff. And then World War II came along, and you spent some time in Indianapolis, but you got back in Brown County in just enough time to graduate from Nashville High School. And then you joined the Air Force because you wanted to go to Austin, Texas.
San Antonio.
San Antonio. Did you ever make it to Austin while you was over there?
No.
Did your trucking business ever take you there?
Oh, yeah.
So then you started your own trucking business, which you did for 40 years. But the story that I'm most interested in is the fact that at 64 years old, you decided to take up backpacking.
Right.
So at 86 years old today, you're still hard at it. You've hiked just about every mile of Brown County, probably a couple of times.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And then you got involved in the Hoosier Hiking Council.
Right.
So tell us about the Hoosier Hiking Council. What does that group do, and what is your involvement in it?
We just build hiking trails, and it's a lot more involved to build a good hiking trail than you would think it would be. You have to make sure that the water runs across the trail and not down it. And so that means you got to go with the way the ground lays. I don't know how to explain it. I know how to do it, but I don't know how to explain it.
You're preventing erosion. You're making sure that the trail stays in good shape.
Yeah, because once you get the ground bare, if water is going to run down it, you're going to have a ditch in a few years.
So we're talking about pickaxe, shovels.
Oh, yeah.
And all you guys are volunteers.
Right.
How many of you are out there building those trails?
Well, when the last work day, there was 22 of us. So it keeps getting a little bigger.
That's good.
Of course, we get a lot of people that are not always repeat. They come one time.
And that's the cure.
Yeah, that cures it. Yeah.
So you guys work hand in hand with the Department of Natural Resources to plot out these trails and maintain them.
Right. We, of course, like the Tecumseh Trail, that's 42 miles. Now, we not only build it, we have to maintain it, too. But when we do them in the state park, why then they get to take care of them.
There you go.
Yeah.
So once you get those done, then the state takes over from there.
And I think right now we're building one in the conservancy property over here on Valley Branch, and I'm not sure how the maintenance will work on that, whether conservancy people, I don't think they will. I think we're probably going to have to maintain it too.
Okay.
But if they're built right, there's really not a whole lot of work to mostly clear blowdowns and keep the brush cut back, and that's about it.
Do you have a favorite trail in this area?
Oh, yeah. I've been taking people there. It's down by Crooked Creek. Of course, you can only get to it when lake water is down.
Right.
But it's really a pretty woods, and after you get into the woods, it's a place where the farmers have terraced.
Oh.
The terraces are still there. Some of them's eroded real bad, and in places there will be 3 of them. But the hills are not so steep as they are where I grew up. You couldn't do it where I grew up. But just that other 4 or 5 miles down through there, they have all these terraces, and that's really neat to walk.
Does that trail have a name?
No.
The Tom Connor Trail.
Yeah, but I did not build anything. I just used deer trails. And, of course, a deer trail goes out, and I don't know where they go because it just ends. Why? Because they must just scatter.
They start seeing the tree stands and they decide to
But
disperse.
anyway, then you have to connect that one up to another one. And that's how I do. I don't do any, on my trails, I don't do any digging. I just clear the brush and use, of course, the deer trails. They bench them themselves with their sharp hoofs. But you do have to cut the weeds, where on a bare ground trail you wouldn't.
So you just got back from New Mexico, where you were hiking the Continental Divide, and you were there for a month.
Yeah.
And you're a solo backpacker.
Right.
What you were saying earlier was that you'd go out for about 3 days.
Yeah.
And
then turn around and come back.
Right. But you backtrack, so...
Right. That way I don't have to depend on anybody to come and pick me up any place. I don't depend on anybody when I'm out there.
It kind of sounds like you don't want anybody out there.
It's nicer, yeah. Yeah. I really don't care whether I see anybody. Well, when I was trucking, I was like that. I didn't care whether another trucker went along behind me or something. I'd rather go by myself.
So you weren't one of those CB hounds that...
No. That was kind of like my cell phone episode. I finally bought one because I got tired of explaining why I didn't have one.
There you go. There you go. And as I recall, your daughter had a little something to do with that. Keep track of you.
Yeah, they wanted to put a chip in me.
So they could identify that old dog if they found him.
Yeah.
Right? So you carry absolutely everything you need, and you'll be out for as long as 4 days.
Yeah, or 5 once in a while.
5 once in a while. And you're still at it at 86 years old.
Right.
And the radio audience doesn't have the advantage of looking at you, but I'm looking at a gentleman that looks considerably younger. In fact, he has almost no gray hair at all. He's obviously in excellent shape. Great sense of humor. And that, I'm going to guess, that your positive attitude, that the fact that you find great humor in this life is one of your secrets.
I guess. I don't know. The way I am is the way I've always been.
Well, that's remarkable. Thank you, Tom, for coming in. Tom Connors, hiker extraordinaire.
Cari Ray with another installment of For a Song. It was October of 1990-something, and I was as yet unkissed by the all-consuming, appetite-stealing, drunken lips of first love. Ironically, by then I had already accepted a proposal of marriage and subsequently broken that engagement. I certainly thought I was in love. My feeling for him seemed to have all of the components that I understood to define it. But once the swinging sandbag of love knocks you for a loop for the first time, you understand that love is not something to be understood with the mind at all. Likewise, your heart's no good to you, as it is burst into a pile of pieces, none of which belong to you anymore anyhow. Today, that love is just a sweet, faded memory that I take out of the box now and then like some old photograph, and lovingly rub my thumb over those young, bright-eyed faces full of promise and uncertainty. That first love left me with more than just some cherished memories and an unwillingness to settle for anything less. It left me with another love, one that endures to this day. You see, my first beloved was an avid journal keeper and lured me into the practice as well. It was sickeningly romantic, really, journaling to each other. I initially used a standard composition book and my trusty, if geeky, mechanical pencil, loaded with .9mm 2 or 3B lead, a little softer and darker than average, which satisfied. At least one entry every day, often more, frantically scrawled on cheap, wide-ruled, saddle-stitched pages. I was pouring my idealistic, love-drunken heart out, after all. And the more I journaled, the better I seemed to be at observing and understanding myself and the world around me. And what started as a love game became something more, something that was about me and me. But enough about me, back to my love. Now, it had come Christmas of our first year together, and we hadn't 2 dimes to rub together between us on our work-study income. I don't even recall the gift I gave, though I have no doubt it was given with more thought than I had ever given before to a gift. That said, I will never forget the one that came to me in a service merchandise jewelry department box. An honest-to-goodness, gold-nibbed vixen of a Waterman fountain pen. And when I first experienced the nearly dragless glide of that gilded medium point, depositing wet indigo across fine rag paper, I fell in love for the second time, and I couldn't wipe the ink-stained smile off my face for weeks. Today, I certainly employ the tick of keys often enough, efficient, clean, and fast. But I have believed for as long as I can recall that there's a magic that occurs with the cursive, handwritten line that cannot be digitally duplicated. It's a time-honored tradition. Many famous authors opt for the meticulousness of writing by hand over the utility of a typewriter or computer. In a 1995 interview, Susan Sontag said she penned her first drafts the analog way before typing them up for editing later. I write with felt-tip pen or sometimes a pencil on yellow or white legal pads, that fetish of American writers, she said. I like the slowness of writing by hand. Novelist Truman Capote insisted on a similar process, although his involved lying down with coffee and a cigarette nearby. Now, I don't use a typewriter, he said in an interview. Not in the beginning. I write my first version in longhand, pencil. Then I do a complete revision, also in longhand. A 2009 study from the University of Washington seems to support Sontag, Capote, and many other writers' preference for writing by hand. Elementary school students who wrote essays with a pen not only wrote more than their keyboard-tapping peers, but they also wrote faster and in more complete sentences. Other studies have shown that learning cursive is an important step towards cognitive development, particularly in training the brain to integrate sensation, movement, control, and thinking. Even brain imaging studies show that cursive activates areas of the brain that do not participate in keyboarding. Further, using paper forces the brain to slow down and more readily explore abstract ideas. For the love of all things analog, I'm personally a major fan of anything that causes my brain to slow down. By now, I would guess that you have divined the nature of my advocacy in this area. But in case it has yet to soak in, I am advocating that you do at least a bit of your writing the old-fashioned way. And while you're welcome to employ finger and cave wall, mallet and chisel, or reed brush and papyrus, I think you'll do just as well with pen or pencil and paper. Rest assured that you will reach the desired creative destination no matter the type of writing instrument or grade of paper. But find a flexible nib, some wet ink and fine paper, and you'll enjoy the ride just as much as the arrival. And it really is about the journey after all, isn't it? I'm Cari Ray signing off and hoping you'll join me next time on For a Song. If you have ideas, questions, or topics you would like to have covered on For a Song, please send them along. You can reach me via the contact page of my website, cariray.com. That's CARIRAY.com. Thanks for listening.
Baby, I think we've been running too much lately. Let's pour us a drink and rest these weary bones. Maybe we've been mistaken, all this doing for living. But all can be forgiven if we find our way back home. And there's a spot under the shady tree I could lay in your arms for a while. Bring it on back to me. Trade in some time for all those miles that we've known. Out on Mahaleysville Road. People always said we'd never come to nothing, taking what we give and singing dusty old folk songs. Now maybe they were right, hell wouldn't that be something? But try as they might, they could never bring us down. And there's a spot under the shady tree I could lay in your arms for a while. Bring it on back to me. Trade in some time for all those miles that we've known. Out on Mahaleysville Road. They all seem kind of strange to me, these passing days. Nothing ever seems to change for me, but nothing ever stays the same. Baby, I think we've been running too much lately. Let's pour us a drink and rest these weary bones. Maybe we've been mistaken, all this doing for living. It all can be forgiven if we find our way back home. And there's a spot under the shady tree I could lay in your arms for a while. Bring it on back to me. Trade in some time for all those miles that we've known. Out on Mahaleysville Road.
now we pause for station identification.
You are listening to the Brown County Hour on volunteer-powered community radio, WFHB, at 100.7 in Brown County, 91.3 and 98.1 in Bloomington, 106.3 in Ellettsville, and online at wfhb.org. Support for WFHB and the Brown County Hour is brought to you by Plum Creek Antiques, located at the intersection of 135 and 45 in downtown Bean Blossom, where visitors can buy, sell, or trade most anything. More information is available by calling 812-988-6268.
In our final segment, we'll begin with another edition in our series, This Old Guitar, this time with Roger Banister. Rick Fettig shares a wedding story, Dave Seastrom has an essay about spring, and we'll close the show with Jason Blankenship's song, The Grind.
Welcome to This Old Guitar, where we learn about the instruments that inspire local musicians and the stories behind them. Today, we talk to Roger Banister about his banjos, a mandolin, and even a fiddle.
So my first instrument was a K banjo, and it was owned by Roger Smith, and my dad knew nothing about banjos. I mean, who knew anything about banjos in the 60s around here, where no one really did? But it was borrowed by another friend of Roger's, and he called the guy and said that he needed it back. So Dad picked it up, and I thought, gosh, this is great. It's just this blonde-looking, bright banjo. And so, I mean, we didn't know how to tune it or anything, so we'd take it over for my first lesson. And Roger immediately started saying, yeah, this is the worst banjo I've ever seen in my life. It's really horrible. He called it a plug. That was his term for it. You know, my heart kind of sank. You know, I thought, oh gosh, I'm playing a plug. So not knowing any music, I didn't really read music. I mean, I took piano lessons, but didn't really read. You know, one note at a time on this banjo. I played on that banjo for a few months, and Roger had two banjos in his possession, both of them being old Gibson Mastertones. And so my father bought one of them for me. So my transition from a K, I went from the lowest of the low, the plug, according to my teacher, to the highest of the high, you know. And that was great. The instrument my father acquired for me. And
do you still have it?
I don't. I hate to say that, but no, that's another story. It's another banjo trade story. But I played that for quite a few years. And as time went by, banjo tastes changed a bit. Mine changed. I kept the banjo for a while, but it was fun to play. My grandfather played fiddle, and I had no interest in playing fiddle, but we were very close. And when he passed away, he actually willed me his fiddle, his violin, and I couldn't bear to look at it for, I don't know, a year or so. You know, it's like, what am I going to do with this thing? But I thought, well, you know, maybe I can learn just one song on it. And so I sat with it and started messing around with it on my own. I was up in Chicago at that time when he passed. So I had the instrument and I was trying to play it. But I was really getting interested in it because it was away from the banjo. It was something new and shiny new toy. So back, I moved to Indiana after 15 years in the Chicago area, cutting out a living, playing music. And who else comes back into my life is my old banjo teacher, Roger Smith, because he plays the fiddle. So I go to him and say, hey, I need to learn to play this instrument. So he took me under his wing again. We went at it again, but it was a lot different this time because I knew how to play music already. So I'm able to play my grandfather's fiddle now. My father, who was a woodworker in high school, built me a fiddle and a mandolin. So when Roger Smith passed about 4 or 5 years ago, he willed me his fiddle. So I have almost all my mentors' instruments. They're just very important to me. The bells are ringing for him and his gal. My dad's sister, Sally, the only one left in that generation of 5 kids, 3 girls and 2 boys. Her youngest son got married last weekend at Straw Lake Shelter House in the Brown County State Park. It was a real hillbilly wedding, and I mean that with great respect. It was very casual. The groom had on what appeared to be a new pair of black Carhartt jeans and a pair of those blondish-colored work boots. His shirt was a purple that was real close to the color of purple that the bridesmaids wore. The bride had a lovely bell-shaped dress with hoops inlaid, giving the dress its shape. She looked very sweet with her bare shoulders as she looked up and held the arm of her tall young man whose hair was like Mel Gibson's in Braveheart. She was barefoot as soon as the reception started, chasing kids around, hugging friends, posing for pictures, and beginning the food line. There was a tray of baked beans, potato salad, barbecue, chips, Bud and Bud Light, and a few bottles of wine. The groom spilled the champagne on his purple shirt when he opened it, and of course they smashed wedding cake into each other's face, and you could tell that they were having fun with each other. Instead of a dance, they sang along with the John Prine song, In Spite of Ourselves, which Iris DeMent is part of. It was very quaint, and I wished them well. The location, Straw Lake, was a tremendous setting for such an event. A parking lot, of course, a grassy field for the kids to run and play in, and I was visiting with my aunt, so I didn't make the climb, but it looked like 4 stories of stairs up the hillside. At the top, there was a walkway that crossed over a beautiful waterfall that rushed down the 4-story cliff, if I can call it that. Across the walkway was the lake, with a man-made earth dam that retained the water. Very picturesque, especially with the bridesmaids and flower girls trolloping in their long purple dresses. There are spectacular and beautiful places all around the world, but the unique character and beauty of the terrain here in southern Indiana can hold its own in any comparison. For most of us, we're on the road daily and perhaps in our yards. Many dog walkers and hikers are often seen along the side of the road. I'd like to remind everyone and encourage you to get off the beaten path and walk a deer trail or a ridgetop or valley. Appreciate our trees while we still have them. Walk barefoot in the creek. Inhale the freshness of the forest. But be thankful we can see the sun and that we're not surrounded by 10-story concrete buildings. We don't have 20-minute traffic jams. This is a very special place on the face of the earth. I trust you are thankful and enjoy a gathering at the park.
Brown County is probably most famous for the fall foliage that draws thousands of people from all over the Midwest. And while that time of the year is certainly beautiful, in my view, nothing beats spring here in the hill country. Within the last week and a half, the entire forest canopy has erupted and the world is fresh and new. The vibrant green leaves covering the trees and the forest floor speak of fresh starts and new beginnings. For 6 months of the year, here on our ridgetop, we can see for miles into the forest. When the leaves show up, suddenly the view changes, and often the distance we can see becomes smaller, but the beauty of the canopy more than makes up for it. Somehow, the presence of leaves makes the forest seem like one living entity, which might be described as a thriving green mass pumping oxygen into the atmosphere. The critters we share the forest with have also returned. Some from faraway winter homes in South America, and some who are just waking up from their long winter slumber. It's still a little too cool for the rattlesnakes, but the other day, our dog Max stirred up a big black snake that was sunning himself on a sand pile next to the shop. It might be said that the early snake gets the bird, but that remains to be seen. For many of us, early spring means it's time to hunt mushroom. Facebook is filled with pictures of morels and other mushrooms people have found in droves. My own mushroom hunting abilities are limited, but I did manage to find one so far after an extended hike. Hiking in the fresh green of our forest is its own reward, so finding even one mushroom is a bonus of unbelievable proportion. Mushrooms aren't the only inhabitants of the forest floor that draw great interest, and this is the time of year to seek out the ephemeral plants. On our ridge, my favorite spring ephemeral is the lady slipper wild orchid. We're fortunate to have 2 clumps that come up every year, and their beauty is outstanding. This is also Mayapple season. There are areas where this plant dominates the forest floor, but mostly they're mixed in with wild ginger and ferns and lots of other plants that I don't know the names of. Soon, the water will be warm enough that the fish will be nesting. This is when the best fishing of the year takes place. Often, state record fish are caught in our small ponds, but even if you don't catch a record, the fishing could be remarkable. To illustrate this point, I'll share a personal story. My grandson is 7 years old, and he loves to fish as much as his grandpa does. When he was younger, I started him out with a worm and bobber, just like my grandpa did for me many years ago. Towards the end of last summer, he wanted to fish with a lure like I do. He was getting better at casting his line, so I set him up with a rapella that has 2 treble hooks. On his very first cast, as soon as the lure hit the water, there was a huge commotion. When he reeled the line in, there were 2 good-sized bluegills attached to this one lure. I've done a lot of fishing in my life, and I can honestly say this was something I'd never seen before. And I can't promise something like this will happen to you, but it might. Spring is the time to start a garden. Gardening is a glorious interaction between nature and the gardener. Early salad greens, sugar snap peas, and asparagus are among the first rewards, with many more to follow as the season progresses. In the cool, early days of spring, I can't imagine a finer way to spend the afternoon. With so many things to love about spring, it's hard to pick a favorite. But if I was pressed to come up with an answer, I would have to say, it's the sounds we hear at night. After a long winter with only the occasional owl or a group of yelping coyotes off in the distance, as soon as the world warms up, we begin to hear frogs. At first, just a few peepers, and then there's an eruption of toads. Suddenly, the nights are filled with a chorus of frogs singing to one another as they look for a mate. In similar fashion, the birds follow suit, and just before dawn, there's a loud conversation taking place in the woods as many birds, fresh from their travels, sing to the glory of love and procreation. And honestly, what could be better than that? This is Dave Seastrom. See you next time.
I think that we were born for better days. We're stuck with broken promises, the choices that we've made. All our imperfections laid out on display. I think that we were born for better days. Better to have loved and to have lost than been alone and never loved at all. Spending time regardless of the cost. It's better to have loved and never loved at all. It'll grind you down, bones to dust. So build your masterpiece, boy. Watch it turn to rust, and it'll grind you down. Grind you down, yeah, it'll grind you down. Grind you down, bones to dust. Yeah, bones to dust. Mama said evil never sleeps. The battle rages on for all eternity. Staring in this glass, looking for the better part of me. Now Mama said evil never sleeps. It'll grind you down, bones of dust. So look to the sky for answers. If you feel you must, but it'll grind you down. Grind you down. Yeah, it'll grind you down. Grind you down. Bones to dust. Yeah, bones to dust. Break it to me gently, lay it on me slow. We can keep it secret, ain't nobody needs to know. We're gonna drag it with us, no matter where we go. So lay it on me slow. I think that we were born for better days. We're stuck with broken promises and choices that we've made. All our imperfections laid out on display. I think that we were born for better days. It'll grind you down, bones to dust. So build your masterpiece, boy. Watch it turn to rust, and it'll grind you down. Grind you down. Yeah, it'll grind you down. Grind you down. Bones to dust. Yeah, bones to dust. Our bones to dust. Yeah, bones to dust.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 62 of the Brown County Hour, recorded in our studio at the History Center here in downtown Nashville, and brought to you the first Sunday of the month at 9 a.m. and at our new time the following Wednesday at 5:30 p.m.
The Brown County Hour is brought to you by a diverse group of folks who believe, now more than ever, that the world is for everyone.
This show was produced by
Chuck Wills,
Pam Rader,
Rick Fettig,
Vera Grubbs.
Cari Ray.
and Dave Seastrom. We would also like to thank Slats Klug for our theme music. You have been listening to the Brown County Hour.
coming to you from deep in the woods of Brown County, Indiana.
celebrating the arts, culture, and nature that make this such a unique community.
Visit us online at browncountyhour.com.
The Brown County Hour is a production of WFHB.
Volunteer-powered, listener-supported community radio for South Central Indiana.
Take me back to my home, Brown County home.